It's Monday, which means another mock draft Monday here on the channel. I'm starting to solidify really what I want to do and kind of where I think the draft is going to go, which means some surprising risers and fallers, some picks you're going to love, some picks you're going to absolutely hate. Without further ado, let's jump into it. We do a mock draft every single Monday. I know it's a little bit overkill, but it's a fun exercise to think about where these players might end up going. Starting with the Titans at number 1, going to go Cam Ward. It just seems like that's going to be the direction that it goes at this point. They have canceled visits with guys like Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders. The stars are aligning for Cam Ward to go from 0-star prospect coming out of high school, going to Incarnate Word, transferring to Washington State, and then ultimately Miami, and then going number 1 overall in the draft. It's an insane story, and he's a really fun prospect. And the Titans, hopefully for them, find their QB of the future, setting up the Browns at number 2 to go Travis Hunter. It's a 50-50 for me. It's either Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, like if they're going to go position player, or add in the other 33% if you're going to combine them all with Shedeur Sanders. I think ultimately Travis Hunter seems to be the guy right now. That's what all the reports are saying. Travis Hunter is the new favorite to go to Cleveland at number 2. Yeah, you could say 33% chance to either take Hunter, Carter, or Sanders. But ultimately, I think the decision is, do we want a position player or do we want our quarterback of the future? If you don't think it's Shedeur Sanders, you can eliminate that possibility and then have the 50-50 of Hunter versus Carter. Do you want arguably the best player in the draft in Travis Hunter, or arguably a more impactful player just due to the position with Abdul Carter? And then you have Garrett on one edge, Carter on the other. Nightmare for opposing offensive lines. So much speed, so much athleticism. But in the end, they do decide to go with Travis Hunter. They need help at receiver in a big way. They consider Travis Hunter to be a receiver. You can still play him defensively if you want to do that. He's just an unbelievable player. And as a Giants fan, I would really hate the way this is transpiring, because Hunter is like my dream pickup for the Giants at 3. And now you have, it's either, again, 50-50, but this time actually only 2 players, Abdul Carter or Shedeur Sanders. And I don't know that the Giants are going to be sold on a QB at 3. If Travis Hunter, I get how good he is, I get how good Abdul Carter is, but if you think Shedeur Sanders could be your franchise QB, you're not going to pass on him. And it seems like the Browns are going to pass on him. The Giants could obviously very easily pass on him when they've already signed Russell Wilson for this season. They've already signed Jameis Winston for the next 2. If you're taking a QB to not start, which is what Shedeur Sanders would be at 3, you're kind of wasting a pick when you might be entering the final year of your contract if you're Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, GM and head coach of the Giants. I think they could just totally bypass quarterback in general, and they might even answer a trade. You might see a team like Chicago move up all the way to 3 for Abdul Carter, and for the Giants, you move well out of blue chip range, but you would at least be getting maybe a future first, which could be interesting in the case of the Chicago Bears. But no trades today. We're going to stick and pick and go Abdul Carter. The reason why it doesn't make maybe the most sense in the world is because you already have a light edge in Brian Burns, who's like 250, right? Carter's not exactly some incredible force against the run, some big-time edge setter. We know about Kayvon Thibodeau, so it's like, oh, do they really need another edge rusher? Carter can also play off the ball, but if you're drafting him here, it's to be a true edge. Kayvon Thibodeau really just has not been that incredible for the Giants. He did have a season where he posted a good sack total, but wasn't really actually very impactful. So he's just been a little bit of a disappointment so far, but for him, thankfully, not as disappointing as Evan Neal, who's been one of the worst players in football if he even gets on the field, and he was a top 7 pick, if I remember. At number 4, have the New England Patriots. It's another spot where I don't feel good about it, and you only really have one blue chip player on the board with Carter and Hunter gone. It's Ashton Jeanty. Are you taking a running back here at 4 if you were the Patriots? I don't really think so. Jeanty is a great player. I don't think that they're going to find running back worth taking at number 4. But they could. It's the same thing with the Jaguars. Like, they could. I know a lot of people don't like Travis Etienne right now, but I think there are other glaring needs. And when you're drafting this high, I get that it's not about need. It's about best player available, and you try to make it fit something that you're going to need in the near future. It's not always about just this season, right? It's about 3 seasons down the line, 4, maybe even 5, right? So you're not always drafting just for this season. That's a common misconception people have. I don't know how, but I just don't think that they would go running back here. And I've got Will Campbell. I don't really feel great about it. I think Campbell is going to end up being a really good player. We know the Patriots need to protect Drake May. Whether Campbell is going to stick at left tackle or not, that remains to be seen. He's got a chance. I think when you factor in his overall athleticism plus the tape, it is a player that's going to ultimately end up going somewhere in this top 10. I don't think it's a given, but I do think it's a likelihood. 4 seems a bit high, but that's ultimately what I have at the moment. At number 5, have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know for me, it's Mason Graham every single time. And I'm sorry if that's boring, but it just seems like it's what's going to happen. I don't know what other direction they would really heavily consider going. Like, maybe Tyler Warren. But again, same reason that I don't love Genty at 4, a tight end at 5 seems rich. I get it's more about the player than the position, and you got to factor in the draft class and the players that are in this draft class. It's not about a tight end at 5. It's about Tyler Warren in relation to the rest of the players in this draft in the 2025 class. But it doesn't seem like it's going to end up happening. It doesn't to me. I think outside of that, maybe you consider Teteroa McMillan. Seems like his fall could be a little bit greater than going in the top 5. Jalen Walker may be in play, but I don't really know that the Jags are going to go that direction either. Got Mason Graham at 5. I just think it makes the most sense based on what they've done in free agency, what they've said. Can't always rely on what GMs say, but I think it definitely makes a lot of sense. And you know what else makes a lot of sense? Yep, you guessed it. It's using code Bengal on Underdog. You get a new customer free pick when you use code Bengal. Bryce Harper, today and tomorrow, all he needs is a plate appearance. So if he plays, he's going to get it. Remember to play responsibly. There's hotlines and websites down underneath. Of course, you are eligible to play college basketball pick'em, which I think is especially important for tonight, the national championship. If you're interested in college basketball, you can play in states like California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, North and South Carolina, Virginia, Illinois, Minnesota, the Dakotas. If you're watching in Wyoming, you can play Colorado. You get the point. Anywhere that's yellow here on this map, you can play. I'm covering up Connecticut. Most of the Northeast is not eligible for college basketball pick'em. If you're interested in my picks for tonight, I'm rooting for Emmanuel Sharp to get higher than 14.5 points. Walter Clayton to get 20 or more points. Jawan Roberts to get 7 or more rebounds. Use code Bengal on Underdog Fantasy. Thank you to Underdog for sponsoring this video. That is UnderdogFantasy.com. Use code Bengal. They've got the Underdog app. And play responsibly, as we're going to try to make some responsible picks here with the PFF Mock Draft Simulator. And what seems to be the most likely, in my opinion, is Ashton Genty with this number 6 overall selection. Yeah, I know I didn't have him at 4, but it's a different team picking here. I think the Raiders running back is a real big need for them. Genty is one of the few true blue chip players in this draft class. He's an incredible talent, and I think just the clear and obvious best player available for the Raiders, and that's what they do. They go BPA. They did fire Tom Telesco, so we don't know what the new GM is going to do philosophy-wise. I don't know how you fire Telesco. You bring him in for a season, and he drafts Brock Bowers, who puts up like an all-time great tight end season as a rookie, and then he gets fired. I know there's more to it than just that, but I don't know. Seemed like an interesting move. Jets at number 7. Going with offensive tackle from Mizzou. It's Armand Membu. Played right tackle. The Jets, I think, have a pretty clear need at right tackle. And I don't know why I get these comments. I guess it's maybe a younger audience at times. It's like I swear, and not always, but I swear if my team takes another offensive lineman. You shouldn't really ever be upset about an offensive lineman in the first round. Yeah, it depends on who it is, obviously, but oh, my team, if they take another offensive lineman. Oh, only maybe the sole biggest reason for an offense's success? Oh no, I'd hate to be a fan of you because you didn't draft a skill player that you can draft in fantasy in the first round. Oh boy, sucks to be you. Listen, Membu is arguably the best offensive lineman in this draft. You can solidify your offensive line for the future with two super young and talented tackles, Armand Membu at right tackle, Olu Fashanu at left tackle. I think the interior of that Jets O-line is actually looking pretty good as well, with guys like Elijah Vera Tucker, Joe Tippmann, right? This is a good offensive line, but you're kind of missing that tackle. And based on the players available, I think Membu ends up making the most sense here. Tyler Warren may be in play as well, but in the end, I go Armand Membu. At number 8, Carolina Panthers. I'm back to it. I avoided it for a little while, but we're back. I'm going Jalen Walker at number 8. Seems like the NFL is going to view him pretty highly. I think you can connect the dots pretty easily to Carolina. They need help off the edge. I think Jalen Walker could really thrive in a Frankie Louvu style role, which you can totally make that happen in Carolina, right? He's from North Carolina. Guys like Daniel Jeremiah have had Jalen Walker at number 5 overall in their last mock draft, indicating that this is a guy that should be going really, really high in this draft. I think 8 just makes the most sense for a team. I get, like, Tetairoa McMillan's a great fit for Carolina, for sure, but maybe they don't view him as a good enough prospect to go at number 8 overall. And if you're looking for that big-bodied, like, true X-style receiver, you could go Alec Iomanner down the board, Jaden Higgins, maybe even Jack Besh, Trey Harris. You can find some big bodies. I know Savion Williams is huge, but I don't really know that he's going to end up being an X-style receiver. He's a fun gadget player, though, no question. He could be amazing in the right offense, but maybe it's not Tetairoa McMillan at 8. Saints at number 9. Even though it's a slight fall, we're going to still call it what it is. The fall for Shedeur Sanders is over. He's currently the favorite to be a New Orleans Saint. So, I don't know. I feel like for the Saints that are kind of missing at quarterback, you're bringing in a new head coach. I feel like Shedeur Sanders and Kellen Moore would fit fairly well. Kellen Clemens, shout out to him, but that's not who I'm talking about. Kellen Moore would work pretty well together. I don't know that there's going to be any type of attachment long-term to Derek Carr. Obviously, he's just not very good and quite expensive and coming up to the end of that contract. Spencer Rattler, I don't think you're really attached long-term to him either. Sanders could just work here as your chance to get a franchise quarterback. They may view him highly enough. He doesn't end up going inside the top 5. He may not end up going inside the top 10. Maybe not even the first round. We'll see. Is this going to end up being one of those drafts where quarterback really ends up falling, where we thought maybe Will Levis would end up being a top 10 pick, or Malik Willis in his draft class, Matt Corral, right? They end up not even close, going 3rd round or later, and that could end up being the case here. Because if you don't think these guys can be your franchise QB, is it worth taking a backup quarterback inside the top 100 picks? It may not be. But Sanders here could end up being the franchise savior for the New Orleans Saints. Interesting way to say savior there. Bears at number 10. This is going to be a controversial one, but it is what it is. In the end here, I think you look to new head coach Ben Johnson, you look at what happened in Detroit, and it's getting obvious what I'm setting up here, I think. But I think the GM of the Bears, Ryan Poles, is going to say, hey, whatever you need to recreate the magic of that offense in Detroit, I will make happen. And at the time, when he was with Detroit, it seemed real early for Jahmyr Gibbs at 12. The Lions, they traded down out of Bijan range and then got Jahmyr Gibbs at 12. And Jahmyr Gibbs was somebody that was maybe going to sneak into the back end of the first round that year, a couple of years ago, right? Ends up going 12th. And it feels a little bit similar, but he's honestly got a little bit more hype around this time than Jahmyr Gibbs had. But it feels like a Marion Hampton could have a similar type ascend. In a draft class without a ton of true first-round talents, could a Marion Hampton end up going top 10? It seems crazy to go back to this where, oh my goodness, 2 running backs top 10, what year is it, right? But Genty is an incredible prospect, and Hampton is really good. And there are some that even prefer Marion Hampton to Ashton Genty. Could that be the case for a number of teams? Maybe it is. Hampton, of course, playing in a power conference. Not to say that, Boise State didn't play any good competition last year, because it's not true. They played teams like Oregon before they found their footing, but still. Hampton is a really, really good prospect with elite size for the position, with really good contact balance, with really good overall speed, with ability to make big plays happen, with an ability to catch the football, and that could really make the Chicago offense run. And you look at what they've done. They signed Dayo Odengbo in free agency. They have Montez Sweat off the edge. They bring in Grady Jarrett. I don't know that this needs to be a defensive lineman at 10. They've completely overhauled the offensive line. Maybe you can still upgrade Braxton Jones at left tackle, but obviously you go out, you sign Drew Dahlman, you trade for Jonah Jackson, you trade for Joe Tooney, you still have Darnell Wright at right tackle. Both of the top offensive linemen are off the board. So unless you're really sold on one of these edge rushers available, you can wait and not necessarily take one here at 10 and get a really good edge player at 40 whatever, or 38. I think they have 39 and 41. So I don't know that this needs to be an edge player or even a defensive lineman in general here. It seems early for Hampton, but if you think he is like clearly above the rest of the running backs at this point, why not take him at 10 and try to recreate the magic of Detroit? Seems early. It's going to be jarring, but I think it's a possibility. So we're going to do it today. At number 11 of the Niners, going with Jahad Campbell. Thought about a lot of different things here, but the best two offensive linemen are off the board. I'm not in love with the defensive lineman here at 11 for the Niners. It seems like, Shamar Stewart may not end up going as high as I think. And we could see a bit of a fall on these guys. And I really do like the edge class quite a lot. But I also recognize that there's a pretty steep fall off after Jahad Campbell at linebacker. And he's not just a true linebacker. This is someone that has played at 240 or 245 pounds, went to the combine at like 235. He's a really, really good athlete that can rush off the edge. He was recruited as an edge rusher, still learning to play off-ball linebacker, but is already really good in zone coverage. He's already a menace working downhill towards the football. Just his read and react is maybe like not the best. But he doesn't need to be a Mike linebacker because he's going to the San Francisco 49ers, who have Fred Warner. If Jahad Campbell can step in and play, a lot of the role that Dre Greenlaw was playing before signing with Denver, and also rush off the edge sometimes, you might be getting a really, really good player here that can solve a couple of different issues for the Niners that really end up having a ton of different needs everywhere now. So I really like the Jahad Campbell fit to the Niners. I've had it before. I'm getting back to it. I think he checks off a lot of different boxes. I think he would play really, really well when he's not having to diagnose everything and it's just going to be Fred Warner, right? Jahad Campbell, just, run and chase, make plays, and very good in coverage, I find. So I really, really like this pick for San Francisco. Cowboys at 12. Seems like there's more and more steam for Matthew Golden, Hookem, by the way, to be the first receiver off the board. With the top running backs gone, I think this makes a ton of sense for Dallas, who they add more speed, but Golden is really a technician. He's a great route runner. He does not drop the football. It would be an awesome addition to this Dallas offense. As we move to number 13, thought about a lot of different things here. Jahdae Barron, maybe an offensive lineman with Teron Armstead retiring. Maybe a defensive lineman with guys like Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon available. All really intriguing picks. Will Johnson is my final pick here. On April 7th. Might end up changing this, obviously. But, I look at their depth chart. I like Kader Kohu in the nickel. You have Jalen Ramsey. But I think that CB2, the boundary, is an upgradable spot. And whether or not Cam Smith ends up, growing into that role if they go a different direction here remains to be seen. Will Johnson's still a really good prospect, in my opinion. Yeah, there are some things that maybe you don't like about him so much, as you did in 2023, where he was playing injured in 2024 when he was playing at all, which wasn't often. And maybe are some deep speed, some long speed questions about Will Johnson. He's got shorter arms. These things are all true, but to me, at the end of the day, it goes back to the Will Campbell conversation, which is his tape is pretty good. His tape's real good. 2024 was not as good as 2023. I get that. Same deal with Malachi Starks. But this just might end up being a safe, good pick. And the Dolphins could use, plenty more of those. At number 14, have the Indianapolis Colts chalk. It's Tyler Warren. I don't have to talk about it too much. They need tight end. Warren's a really good player. Could end up going safely inside the top 10. He gets to 14. It's just such an obvious fit. Get Anthony Richardson some more weapons. Find out if he's going to be your guy. Otherwise, you got some big problems. But you can get something in place for whoever your next quarterback ends up being. Which, I hope it's Anthony Richardson, but it may not be. At number 15, Atlanta Falcons. I am addressing the pass rush. Will the Falcons and Terry Fontenot, the GM, do it in real life? Unlikely. But I am forcing them to go with something off the edge here. Mike Green, explosive as hell, great overall hand usage. He's stout against the run for someone that's only like 250, if that, right? So he's a really good player. We know the Falcons need to upgrade their pass rush. Will they actually do it? Remains to be seen, but that's what I have today. 16, at the Arizona Cardinals, I am going with Walter Nolan. Offensive line very much in play, as is Kenneth Grant. Nolan went in for a top 30 visit with the Cardinals. The Bengals were another team. I think Cowboys, Falcons, Panthers maybe. And some of this could be if he gets to the second round or wherever, right? Or just to get a check-in. Nolan has as much potential as basically anybody in this draft. There are some character concerns with him, no question. He, including high school, went to like 6 different schools in 7 years. That's always a little weird. I say always. It seems basically unprecedented. And there are some, concerns character-wise that have been brought up, but I've also heard that he's interviewed well. So I don't really know what to make of those. Some have had him falling out of the first round entirely, but I think 16 makes a lot of sense. When you think about his upside, you think about the Cardinals. Yeah, O-line definitely in play here, but Nolan is just a big home run swing where if he works out, he's going to be an incredible player. I think that's a tough thing to turn down in this draft class, which doesn't really seem to have a ton of super high upside guys that are also going to be fairly high floor. You can make a really solid argument that Nolan is one of the best 10 players in this class. Get him at 16. And he's got as much potential again as anybody. At number 17, Cincinnati Bengals. Probably would have heavily considered a lot of these guys that have just gone off the board. Mike Green, Walter Nolan. But we're going to go ahead and go with another player that was brought in on a top 30 visit. Similar motivation to sending Walter Nolan to Arizona. I'm going to go Nicky Manwari, safety from South Carolina. He's obviously a really good athlete. If you watched the Combine or saw him play, you are aware of this. He is a freak athlete, 6'3", 220. He's someone that is a ball hawk, though. It's not just an athlete. This is someone that has an extreme knack for finding the football and making plays. Is he as good against the run as you would want him to be at that size? No, he's not. And is he going to be somebody that can play single high safety? No, he's not going to be able to do that either. But can he be effective enough as a 2-high player at strong safety or in the box or playing in the slot? I think absolutely. And I constantly tell you about how he's so impressive carrying routes vertically because typically you see guys that are like 6'3", 220. They're built, as sturdy as he is. You think, okay, probably struggles to move laterally, tighter hips, maybe isn't someone that looks as fluid out there and can really run with anybody. But I don't really find that to be a problem with Nicky Manwari. And I think you factor in the athleticism, the upside, and the tape, and the ball skills, he's going to end up being a first-round type pick. And he got brought in for a top 30 visit with the Bengals. They could certainly use an upgrade in the back end of their team. Nicky Manwari just makes a lot of sense to me as we get to the Seahawks at 18. And I'm going Teteroa McMillan. I would have a hard time seeing him fall outside of this range. I think he's one of the better players in this draft. He's got great size. There was an interview that came out from a couple of years ago about him not liking to watch film. I don't really care. Like, he's still doing it. And obviously you want someone that's a little bit more jazzed about it, right? Being like, oh yeah, I love getting in there and studying the game. Like, that's the right answer. But there are so many different players out there that, actually maybe don't love football. They're just really good at it. Does that impact where they go in the draft? I think it absolutely can. That's why maybe Christian Gonzalez dropped. That was a report around the time. I asked around and I heard, okay, yeah, there were thoughts that maybe Christian Gonzalez didn't really love football. Do you want to take a player like that really, really high in the draft? He felt like 18. The Patriots got him, I think, after trading down, and he's one of the best corners in the league right now. So McMillan does fall a bit, but the Seahawks stop his fall. They lose DK Metcalf. They cut Tyler Lockett. I don't want to give them another slot receiver. I don't think it's a fit. I don't even want to give them a tight end in Colston Loveland because, I don't think adding another player that's most effective in the slot is the right call. Now, McMillan can be effective in the slot, but this is a guy who can play on the outside. JSN working the middle, McMillan on the outside. I think it's a really good fit for the Seahawks for Sam Darnold as we get to the Bucs at 19. They know they have needs in the secondary, and they can solve some of those by taking Texas corner, hook him, Shedeur Barron. Love him. He's an amazing, amazing player. I don't think he's going to be a boundary. He's short. He's not even 5'11". He's got really short arms, like 29 inches. Really, really short. I don't think that is a boundary corner in the league. Where does a player like this end up going if he's got no hope to play on the boundary? I don't know. You've talked to some people that say, all right, he's in play at 6. Maybe he is. Fit with Pete Carroll. There's also a thought for me, as much as I love him as a player, there's a thought for me that he's going to be available in round 2. Because I look at him really similarly to the way I looked at Brian Branch. And I love Brian Branch as a player. He didn't test all that well and has obviously been an incredible NFL player so far. Shedeur Barron has actually tested pretty well. Really well. And the tape's great. Thorpe Award winner. Brian Branch went at 45. It's a tough sell for me to say that a nickel corner, as good as he is in a weird draft class, it's tough for me to say that he's going to end up going top 10, even though I guess I recognize it as a possibility. I've got him to the Bucs here at 19. They could use an upgrade in the secondary. They could use an upgrade in the nickel. Is there a chance Barron can play on the outside? I think there is a chance. Kind of same deal with Will Campbell. He may just be skilled enough to be able to do that, right? But I do think it's less likely. I think he will fall a little bit. I don't think he's going to end up being a top 10 pick. Absolutely could be. It's a weird draft class, but got him at 19. Broncos at 20. The top 2 running backs are off the board. Top couple of receivers are off the board. It's a bit of an interesting pick here for the Broncos. Everybody and their mom thinks this is going to be an offensive player, right? And I think that's probably where I lean, but I also wonder, do they do something defensively here? Do they take one of these better interior defensive linemen that are on the board? I don't think it's impossible. I really don't. They bring in Dre Greenlaw. They bring in Talanoa Hufanga. They tried to upgrade the defense through free agency. Respect it. But I think they could absolutely consider defense with this pick here at number 20, given all the talented edge players that are on the board. Even though maybe it's not the biggest need, I get that. And especially the interior defensive linemen. But I am going to go with Colston Loveland here. I know that they signed Evan Ingram. I get that. It's a short-term deal. They don't really have any type of need to keep him on the roster beyond this year. I think it is 2 years, though. They can also run 12 personnel. You would get Loveland for 5 years if you wanted him with the 5th-year option. So even if you're like, we already have Evan Ingram, we don't need Colston Loveland. You are not just drafting for 2025. That's not how NFL teams draft. They don't say, oh, well, we have the position for 2025. He's absolutely going to stay healthy, and we'll figure out tight end when we need to in a few years. That's not how this works. And also, Evan Ingram staying healthy. Have you seen his track record? The guy's hurt all the time. Loveland is a stud player. I think he's absolutely going inside the top 22. I don't think he falls beyond the Chargers. I guess it's a possibility. And then I would find it really hard to see him getting beyond the Rams. But I think he's basically a lock first-round pick at tight end. which is interesting to say. But there are some really good tight ends in this class. Loveland is in the conversation as tight end 1, depending on what exactly you want. He's a really good receiving option. Numbers were down this year because look at the Michigan offense and their quarterbacks. Of course they're going to be down. He didn't play badly. He's a great player, and the Broncos get another move Joker style tight end. You can run 12 personnel, but you can also just use these guys as receivers. That's what Evan Ingram and the Colston Loveland are. Steelers at 21, going Kenneth Grant. I think nose tackle absolutely in play. I think a lot of what they've done in the offseason would indicate that. And the Steelers typically are not a team that, plays their hand close to their chest. They'll basically tip their hand, show you exactly what they're going to do, and then they do it. Kenneth Grant's a good player, really good athlete, a lot of potential. And I think if you're looking at the long-term future of the Steelers, that interior defensive line is in question. Cam Hayward is obviously quite old. And you could just look to upgrade the other 3-4 end spot anyway. But Grant can play nose tackle. You can move over Keanu Benton. They've got, that's a really good interior D-line of the future. Kenneth Grant, Keanu Benton, and then I guess Cam Hayward for now, maybe somebody else later. But that's a fun pickup for a team that I think could absolutely use the upgrade there. At number 22, and quarterbacks is in play. I get it, but maybe quarterbacks aren't going this high because I'm not a big Jackson Dart guy. Jalen Milroe got a draft invite. Is Jalen Milroe going first round? I don't know. I don't think so, but like we've said before, he is incredibly athletic. He's got a very strong arm. He doesn't do a lot of the other quarterback things well, doesn't process, isn't consistently accurate enough, puts the ball in harm's way. These are things that Jalen Milroe does. But again, like I've said before, if he gets to his 1%, he's going to be one of the better players in the league. Like, would you think that Lamar Jackson coming out, and I think Lamar Jackson was a far better prospect than Jalen Milroe, so don't misconstrue that, but he ended up going number 32 overall. But would you have thought that Lamar Jackson could end up being one of the best players in the league overall? Like, a lot of people still don't. They still think he's just a running back, right? And Jalen Milroe legitimately is a running back, but he's got a cannon. If you can develop him for a while, maybe there's something there. Would I take a shot in the first round? No. But would I prefer him to Jackson Dart or Will Howard? I probably would. Anyway, it's a conversation for another day. Chargers at 22, going Luther Burden. I still love him as a player. I really do. I know he's lost some steam, but we know the Chargers need to upgrade receiver. They absolutely do. Tight end as well, no question. And then I've given them edge rusher before. People are like, oh, we don't need an edge rusher. Did you see the playoff game? We need a wide receiver. Like, oh, dude, thanks for telling me. I know that Khalil Mack is under contract for like a year, and then you have Tui Pulotu as your next best option. Joey Bosa's gone, but yeah, you don't need any type of edge rush help in the future. You'll be fine. Don't even worry about it. But if the player's good enough, anyway, I'm not gonna be able to convince anyone that it's a good idea to take anything other than receiver, running back, or quarterback. But Luther Burden is a really good player. He does his best work in the slot, which, okay, maybe you think Ladd McConkey, but McConkey's got outside type abilities, as does Luther Burden. But McConkey's such a great route runner. He's such a good deep threat. He is an outside style receiver that can be really effective in the slot. Burden, I think, might be a really effective slot receiver that can play on the outside. He's a great athlete, great mover, running back with the football in his hands, which is an ultimate compliment. He's just so good at breaking tackles and making extra yards. I just think he's a great talent. And he's a slot fade king at Mizzou. The Chargers need more weapons. That's what Luther Burden is. At 23, Green Bay Packers making the most Green Bay Packers pick ever. It's Mykel Williams out of Georgia, who's another draft invite, by the way. There are only like 10 of them. Mykel Williams and Jalen Milroe among those 10, or maybe it's going to be slightly more than that. Williams is really talented. You're waiting for him to unlock more ability, but he was hurt all of 2024 and still managed to make a big impact at times. And again, I think if you can reach his top level ability, it's going to be as high as basically anybody in this class. He is a really solid athlete with NFL type measurables. He's 6'5", 265, incredibly long arms, really good run defender. And for the same reasons that teams really like Trayvon Walker, he goes at number 1 overall. Granted, Trent Baalke is your GM, but you can like Michael Williams for a lot of the same reasons. And he's available 23. Packers, Goody, pull the trigger on like a classic Packers type edge. Still developing as a rusher, but they've got size and athleticism. At 24, the Vikings really could use a trade down. They have like no picks in this draft. I think only 4 overall. But Malachi Starks, I think, is like the best fit for them in the entire draft if he's available. He can play free safety. I think he can thrive in 2 high, but I think he's really, really good as a single high safety. He can play in the slot. He's just such an incredible overall defensive back. Not ever going to be a boundary corner, but really, really good DB. Prototype free safety. Vikings lose Cam Bynum. Stark steps right in with starter type ability. It's hard to find a better fit for me in this draft than Malachi Starks to the Vikings if he is available. At 25, Houston Texans. Going Kelvin Banks Jr., hook him from the University of Texas. He could potentially play left tackle, but he can also play guard. There are a lot of guys that think he profiles well to step inside to guard. 6'4", 320, I think 33-inch arms. So kind of right on that borderline threshold of, okay, is he going to stick a tackle? Is he going to move inside? And he's on the ground a little bit too much, but overall moves really well. He's a finisher in the run game. His pass protection has been pretty good at Texas. Quinn Ewers didn't always help him out. And the Texans just could absolutely use upgrades on the O-line in general. Banks is here at 25, stays in state. And he's a Houston guy as well. I think he was Humble. I think he's from Humble. Might have to double check that, but pretty sure. LA Rams at 26, going to go back-to-back tackles with Josh Simmons from Ohio State. They did re-sign Alaric Jackson. Not sure that Havenstein at right tackle is going to be their answer of the future. Simmons not going to necessarily have to jump in and play right away. Still recovering from an injury, although he was moving great at his pro day for someone like 5 or 6 months removed from a patellar tendon tear. Really good player. If you watch the first couple months of the year, month and a half, his tape was as good as anybody in this class at tackle. Could have been a top 10 pick. Injury holds him back. Ends up going at 26. Maybe future right tackle of the future. It's a lot of futures. But this isn't a rap album. At 27, Baltimore Ravens. Apologies for that one. End up going James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. A lot of juice off the edge. Really, really talented rusher. Right now, probably designated pass rusher, rotational player, which you don't mind at 27. Try to develop him for the future. The Ravens sack numbers overall are pretty good, actually. I think corner's absolutely in play here. But for me, I think Pierce makes a little bit more sense. I don't think you can rely on Kyle Van Noy long-term. Adafe Owe, I think, is pretty good. But David Ajabo, when he's been on the field, hasn't been as big of a contributor as maybe you would have wanted. Doesn't hurt to get another edge player in the mix. Pierce, incredible athlete. Insane burst off the line. Double-digit sack potential. And then at 28, going to be another edge rusher. I'm going Donovan Ezeraku. I look at what the Lions covet in its production, and Ezeraku's got a ton of that. So I think Shamar Stewart maybe fits their body type needs a little bit more. Being like 270 pounds, you look at Aiden Hutchinson, look at Josh Paschal. But Ezeraku could be a DPR, designated pass rusher early, and then, work into a full-time edge role potentially. But really good rusher. He's got extremely long arms for a small frame. Or small body in general, 6'2", 247, but insanely long arms, like 34 plus inches at that size is insane. When guys like Kelvin Banks don't have that. Guys like Will Campbell don't have that. Guys like Armand Membu don't have that. Ezeraku, big time potential, could end up going first round, and has been really productive. I think it's a good fit for Detroit at 28. At 29, it's going to be 3 straight edge rushers. Got Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Obvious need off the edge for Washington. Stewart's got, again, incredible potential. He's an insane athlete. 6'6", 270, really more than 290. He was 267 at the combine. Tested insanely well. Like maybe number 1 edge ever in terms of athletic testing. Height, weight, speed, and then everything else. I don't think he did agilities, but In terms of RAS, relative athletic score, Kentley Platt on Twitter at MathBomb has this great formula. And from 1987 to now, goes with every different player that has ever worked out, essentially, and compares them. And Shedeur Stewart, I believe, was number one among edge rushers or defensive ends. Just insane. And I think he showed that he can rush the passer at the Senior Bowl. And on tape, it's a little bit worse, but he's not always being asked to just go straight after the QB. You know, he's lining up from the 4-eye a lot of the times. And if you're on the inside shade there, it's difficult to make a true impact off the edge. It's more of, you know, something for run defending and, you know, playing zone read at times. You know, A&M wasn't always just like, hey, go get after the QB who's in a straight drop back. It just didn't happen that often. I think he's still developing, but that's okay. This is where you take a shot on the guy like that. And I would do it much earlier in this draft. I think I would really consider Shedeur Stewart with a top 10 pick. But you got to be able to develop him. He's here at 29. At number 30, Buffalo Bills going Derek Harmon. The production for Harmon is great. Number one among FBS interior defensive linemen in pressures. I think you can look at the Bills. I know they bring in Larry Ogunjobi, who I think is facing a suspension, right? But either way, you bring in Larry Ogunjobi. I don't think that stops you from still upgrading the interior, especially with 3 edge players going off the board right in a row. I don't know if you're going Nick Scorton here, Landon Jackson, Uman Mielen, Braden Swinson. I like these players, right? I don't know that they're going inside the first round. Scorton, maybe, we'll see. But Harmon, great player, great pickup there for Buffalo. As we get to the Chiefs at 31, I don't think they should be done at tackle. Going Josh Connerly out of Oregon. Tape's pretty good. He got run over at the Senior Bowl on 1 rep by Mike Green. Does that make him a bad prospect? It shouldn't. I mean, it lingers in your head maybe. You think about that play, but it's a bull rush in a one-on-one. I'm not really like that moved by it. The tape's pretty good. It's funny that his measurables are, I think, identical to teammate Johnny Cornelius. I think they're both 6'4", 315 with the same arm length. They're 6'5", 315. I think they're the same height, even though they're listed slightly different here in PFF. Connerly's really good, though. I think he could definitely end up inside the first round. Probably a top 40 selection either way. And I don't think the Chiefs should be done. You bring in a backup tackle from San Francisco and you're like, we'll be fine. I don't really think that's a good idea. Connerly's somebody that you can try to develop. And I know the Chiefs fans are apprehensive to taking a tackle because, we've never developed an offensive lineman or a tackle. Okay, offensive lineman's wrong because Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, etc. But we've never upgraded or developed a tackle. You haven't taken one in the first round since Eric Fisher over a decade ago. What do you mean? You don't know. You haven't tried. Kingsley Suamataia is jumping in at guard. I don't think that makes Gray Zabel undraftable here, who is a guard or center. But Chiefs don't need a tackle. They're never going to take someone with his threshold, even though if you've listened to me in the video, I say he's not playing tackle in the NFL. He would step in at guard. I don't think Kingsley Suamataia is good enough at this point to stop Gray Zabel from coming in and being a starter. But regardless of that, we go with the tackle, Josh Connerly, and the Eagles go with Gray Zabel at 32. It's going to be something in the trenches probably for Philadelphia here at 32. I'm going with Gray Zabel. You obviously lose a lot on the defensive line. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, but you don't necessarily need to replace that at 32. It's a really good edge class, really good defensive line class in general. You could do that later, right? But you lose Mekhi Becton, who was a great guard for you this past season. I get that maybe there's some other options that can step in, right? But between the retiring of Jason Kelsey a couple of years ago, and sometimes you've had some injury concerns with Landon Dickerson, who signed a big extension, right? Is Tyler Steen your next best option? You have Cam Jurgens, but Zabel could be a swing tackle if there's an injury, right? But Lane Johnson's probably getting ready to retire soon, but probably going to step in and compete to start at guard, at right guard immediately. And your left to right would look something like Jordan Mailata, obviously Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Gray Zabel, Lane Johnson. Tyler Steen's a backup. and then you're fine. I feel like that's a pretty good group. So I think guard, which is what Gray Zabel is, guard or center, but guard is in play here, and maybe they could wait on defensive line. I think Zabel ends up being a first-round pick. So that is my 2025 NFL mock draft for today, Mock Draft Monday, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.